domestic manufacturing, whole home electrification, vehicle to grid, battery manufacturing, AI implementation. There are so many things happening in the renewable energy industry right now. In 2024, RE+, which is our largest trade show of the year, was a showcase for these trends that are reshaping the clean energy landscape. We had several conversations about industry trends at our Power Up live stage at RE+ this year. So in this episode, I'm highlighting these conversations so that you can hear what trends are guiding our industry and what technology you need to keep an eye out for on the horizon. To start, let's dive into a chat with Ann Fisher, Ryan Kennedy, and John Fitzgerald Weaver, aka Commercial Solar Guy from PV Magazine, as they uncover what they are seeing on the show floor from this last RE+ in Anaheim, California.
The biggest thing that I'm seeing, and this is kind of a continuation for when I went to Intersolar in Germany this past June, is the number of battery solutions that are out there. And they're just exploding. We could have a show just of batteries probably if we wanted to. And to be honest, myself, I'm still intimidated by a lot of batteries because there's just so much tech out there, so many questions, so much to do with them, O&M to manage them, dealing with how to sell the energy. I'm really watching as the battery management systems start to evolve is really something that I'm paying attention to. I saw multiple companies selling platform solutions. I visited Schneider and their EV Connect platform, which they're looking to offer software solutions to people that want to install charging hardware, but don't have a platform to manage it and don't have a 24/7 call service. If any of you own an EV, especially if it's on the Electrify America network, you know that the EV charges are down. It just happens. If you have a Tesla, they're almost always up. But if you go up to your charge point, if you go to your EVgo, if you go to your Electrify America, it's going to be down sometimes. Schneider wants to offer 24/7 call services, management services on a platform level. So they're offering solutions for people scaling. I visited Tigo, and Tigo has the same thing. So, of course, Tigo's always offered you monitoring on a module level as they moved up from their various components. But one of the things that they're showing off at their booth is a platform level for installers so they can watch their whole project, so they can get support from Tigo, so that they can install stuff and track it well. And I'm seeing it with batteries too. People are just looking platform level, broader level. This reminds me of 3 to 5 years ago when I was hearing on the utility scale development level that the investor folks wanted better data access to these projects so they could evaluate them and put values on them better. So it seems like the software people are pushing hard to get into the data and make it so we have better access to things on a large scale so that you're not doing onesies and twosies. So you have 50 projects, 100 projects, 1,000 projects in a system that can be centrally managed, quantified, and, monetized. So that's one thing I notice a few of is just these platform conversations.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see energy storage mature, and we're not talking to battery providers anymore. They're solutions providers, and they're helping out with EPC, and they're integrating software, and they're making it more of a turnkey solution. Each year that I've come to this event, more and more battery providers are more solutions oriented and making those partnerships. So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah.
One trend that I've seen increasingly over the years is two companies collaborating on two companies that offer very different solutions collaborating on a combined solution. And one of them that I just saw was Briggs & Stratton and Solar. They're launching packaged solutions of the inverter and the battery together, and I think we'll start seeing more of that. And we do the RE Plus booth tours, which Ryan conducted 2 of them yesterday, and I know that energy storage was big on that too. You went to SMA. Can you tell us something about it, what SMA is offering?
Yeah, SMA, it's another one of those providers that, you originally may have thought of them as just an inverter provider, but now they're getting into storage, they're integrating it, and it's that solutions-oriented approach. And we had a couple other similar stories where we spoke to what started as a battery provider, and now they've found a way to bring in an inverter or software, and it's a more holistic approach with it. And I think that's important, especially in a place like California where energy can be so complicated. The billing regimes are changing all the time. We shifted into NEM 3.0, and batteries are just more and more essential to home energy as well as at the grid scale. So, it only makes sense that it's evolving into that solutions-oriented approach where you're simplifying it for the customer and managing the electricity.
Yeah, you mentioned Solarc. That's one of my favorite inverters. They've recently moved into the small commercial 30 and 60 kW units, three-phase, but their residential battery, they were showing it off. I've dealt with them recently and Fortune, and both of them have inverters that are hybrid inverters, and it's the first time I've casually used a hybrid inverter. I used a Fortune inverter because they had a few key features that were really nice. I had an export limit on the local transformer that was 50 kW on the pole, but the customer wanted 112 kW on the roof. So, we had an east-west roof. So first I did a energy production analysis to see how much we would lose. Then we limited our inverter output to 72 kW, but our grid output to 50 kW, and we snuck some batteries in there. So we managed to get 112 kW on the roof where we can only net meter export 50, feed the site first, and we're probably not going to have any energy loss, I'm hoping, in the design. And that's because this Fortune battery, this Fortune inverter system allows for customization. Solarc I like because, and this is what they were showing off at their booth, they take all that stuff you used to see with an off-grid system, Midnight Solar, charge controllers, all these cool gear. Outback Solar used to be our go-to there, but Solarc has squeezed it all into one machine. And man, if I was doing resi, my own house right now, if I was in the woods, Solarc might be the choice because it just squeezed everything in there. And so I like seeing this residential and small commercial battery tech grow because the small C&I space is still not getting the right attention for battery solutions. It's, the small ones work well. They're very simple. The big ones scale. They have great, but that in-between space at, 50 kW up to 500 kW, dealing with demand charge management, doing 1,000 volt versus 1,500 volt. There's this little collection of things that gives headaches, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But it's evolving. It's coming. So this smarter inverters, batteries, tying them together, it's happening, and it's nice to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned residential solar. Solar broadly, we've reached now 5 million installations in the United States, and those numbers are really expected to balloon and continue to ramp up. We're expecting that to double by 2030 and reach 10 million installations. And then another 4 years from then, in 2034, we're expecting 15 million individual separate solar installations. At the end of the year, the U.S. is expected to reach 40 gigawatts. And, that's within the year, 40 gigawatts installed this year alone. And then through the end of Q2 2024, we have officially reached 200 gigawatts of installed solar in the United States. So a couple more high-level insights for you there.
Yeah, it's exciting. And another trend that I've spotted is big companies like Eaton. They've announced the AbleEdge home energy management system. So Eaton's not known for resi, and it's exciting to see big companies, looking down and moving down into residential. And as Ryan said, residential's booming.
Well, this year they might fall off around 5 to 10%. I've been doing Roth, MK something. They just changed the name, but Roth Capital. They've been suggesting that next year we might see residential return to growth of 5 to 10%, maybe 5 to 15% versus this year. But it's still a decent volume because we've had significant growth over the last 2, 3, 4 years. So a lot of people are hurting resi-wise, but it's still moving. It's still growing. It should be coming back.
Yeah, hopefully with some potential interest rate relief and solutions, costs of products and components going down, combined with people shifting their sales pitches around the changing legislation, hopefully we'll start seeing it move back into the growth area. I've also been seeing anywhere from about 5 to 15 as on the most optimistic end, 20% growth next year, but that's probably a little rosy.
All right, next up is Ryan Mayfield, who actually recorded his 50th episode of Ask Mayfield Anything live from Power Up Live stage. He's joined by Kate Collardson and Chris Crowell, and this Ask Mayfield Anything is a live podcast as they discuss the top 5 pieces of tech that they saw on the show floor of RE+. A lot of these are groundbreaking technologies that are just coming onto the scene, so it's well worth a listen to see what is coming up for our industry. Stick around to see a special guest appearance from the company that won their Best at Show award this year.
One of the things that caught my eye, I was talking with my team. We have 6 folks here from Mayfield Renewables, and so we had our text chain going as well of kind of what those products were. One that stood out for us as an engineering firm and something that I think it would be interesting for folks is out there is SMA's new, their flex inverter. So they have they've brought one of their inverters, and basically the flex part of it is that you can you can choose the voltage, the operating voltage at which you're working within. And so it's an inverter that can work with 600 volt systems, 1000 volt systems, or 1500 volt systems. So I thought that one was interesting. We're seeing a lot of repowering systems. I don't know how, kind of getting into that whole end of life thing. But that was an interesting one for me, just in the sense that one inverter that can serve multiple markets. You don't have to rewire arrays. You don't have to do that kind of stuff. So did you guys get a chance to look at that or talk with them?
I did, yeah. I mean, SMA has a lot going on, and it's interesting that new technology, again, kind of not what's old is new again, but the idea of repowering and kind of going backwards with something that's new that we don't want to pass by, projects or technology that's still needed in areas while we're looking to the future,
The next one was the Critter Guard. I want you to introduce that one, Kate, because that was your
Yeah, absolutely. I just this morning, in fact, I came across a new Critter Guard mounting system from Unirac. Now, as I was just mentioning, it's important that we are able to use all of the products that we install to the end of their lives, and critters can shorten lives. So Critter Guard for residential installs is very important, but it can be a hassle to install. It's a hassle to make it work well, and you often have to drill into the module frame, which is not the best, but Unirac has a new system that will clamp onto the module frame and is reusable. You can take it off and pop it back on as needed. So I'm pretty excited to see a new system for mounting Critter Guard. It's an important thing that we should be putting on our resi installs.
Yeah.
Another one, Chris, you kind of brought up the Helioscope product and kind of what you saw in that. So why don't you tell us about? Our team, I should say. I used to use Helioscope a lot. Yeah. Our team uses Helioscope a lot, so I'm just curious, and I was really excited to hear about what you saw in there.
Yeah, so Helioscope, they were acquired by Aurora back in 2021, and this new feature they debuted this year, similar obstruction detection, is their first real use of Aurora Solar's AI smarts in the Helioscope platform. So when if you're looking at a giant roof, there could be hundreds of skylights or vents, HVAC units, and you have to kind of go in and draw those keep outs, and it's time-consuming work for when you're trying to plan that array layout. And what this does is it uses computer vision, where when you draw that first one and you essentially click the button for similar obstruction detection, within 30 seconds, it basically found 182 of that same skylight on this massive roof. And, saving those 15 minutes, 20 minutes that you'd spend of tedious work.
It's incredible.
Copy, paste,
Yeah.
get in the right spot.
Tedious, you might mess it up at some point.
Exactly.
And it's a very good use of AI. I'm in media, so I'm leery of AI sometimes hearing it. But this is this is what AI should be used for. I feel like it was very impressive to see happen live. And you could think about where that could go from here,
The folks over at Span have some really interesting products. People probably have known about them for a long time. If not, you should go check them out. For me, it was really interesting because there's a new UL standard that's coming out, UL 3141. We actually just talked about it in one of our recent AMAs, which is adjacent to, if you're not familiar with it, it's a brand new standard, so it's not surprising people aren't familiar with it, but it's adjacent to the 1741 CRD, which is around power control systems, PCS, and something that's in National Electrical Code, something near and dear for me. So all of that is a setup for the SPAN product, which is, this is just one part of what they have going for this, but the PCS function of their products. And so one of the things I found was really interesting as I was talking with them yesterday, they are able to, working with folks on minimizing service upgrades or the need for service upgrades, or the need to even install a larger service to begin with. So if it's a brand new installation, if you go through and do your load calcs and you have a large load, if the numbers come out relatively large, over 200 amps in a residential application, using the SPAN product, you can actually load shed and you can actually actively manage those loads. And so one of the things they can do is just still having a smaller service, because reality is we're probably not going to be drawing that much current in a residential application. If you are, that's, you've got some crazy stuff going on. So that was one of the things that they have. And then the other one, before I turn it over to you guys to talk about what you saw there, the other thing I thought was really neat was kind of talking into energy storage and backups capabilities. SPAN actually has the ability for you to integrate with a battery system, but when the power goes out, when the battery goes into backup mode, you can actually start shedding loads in a way that doesn't overload the inverter itself. So if you have a 50 amp output from your inverter, you can make sure that you shed loads in such a way that you're not going to overload the inverter and bring it down, and then all of a sudden you have no power again. So those were a couple things. There's some other stuff. I spent, half hour, 45 minutes at least in the booth nerding out on it. Yeah. There's definitely some cool stuff. Kate, what did you see? I know that you talked to them as well.
Yeah, I just want to call out their booth, which is actually, it has solar on it, it has a battery on it. It's grid tied right now, but it can be off grid, and I think that's pretty darn cool. It's outside, which is necessary for sort of thing.
We wanted to introduce who we are calling, we're donning our winner. They don't get any prizes. They don't get any anything other than our kudos.
Give them this critical clip.
We can do a drum. You can do a drum roll if you want. So we going through the floor, looking at everything. It was Anza. So we have Mike Hall that's going to join us. So Mike, if you want to come on up, we'll do an introduction real quick. So thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. For those of you who may not know, I'll do a quick introduction to Anza. I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to give Mike the opportunity to correct us and make sure that you are that we're getting this right. So Anza is a software tool, and it was one of those things. I heard about it and I was like, okay, that sounds, I guess, interesting. No offense to you, but then went to the booth, got a demo of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually really, really cool. I was really blown away by what you guys were doing. So, Mike, I know you were, former Borrego, so you've been in the industry for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. And so will you give us the real introduction on what Anza is and, who it's serving and kind of what the overall functionality of it is?
Yeah, happy to do it. And thanks for coming and checking out. And we're honored that you picked us. I think the easiest way to start is just, I like to use a metaphor. So this is a $50 billion industry in the U.S., and even companies that are looking to buy tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of solar modules are still doing it, kind of like my parents bought airline tickets in the 80s. You're calling and emailing one vendor at a time saying, hey, I need 5 megawatts in Q2 of 2025. What do you got? But the supply chain landscape is really complicated. There's like 35 suppliers. They all have multiple SKUs. And so from our work at Borrego, we realized that there was a lot of optimization that you could be doing in the space of procurement, and that you could really be increasing project profits. And so we had this idea for Anza. And basically what we've done is we have taken all of the supply chain data from 95% of the US module supply. We have over 33 suppliers, over 120 different module products. And we've taken all that data and taken it out of PDFs and spreadsheets and structured it. And so now You log into Anza, and it's more like Kayak. You can see the entire market, every module available. You can see availability, pricing, but also all the technical specifications that matter to you. And you can filter and sort based on the things you care about. You only want modules that can withstand 40 millimeter hail. You can instantly sort the whole database. You only want modules made in the US, module assembly, module cells. You can search the database. And this is all done in seconds. And then the other thing that we did, and this is what we brought over from Borrego, is we thought that the industry was kind of backwards in thinking about, hey, it's all about price. Like, what's the cheapest cost per watt? But actually, it's actually about value, right? How much energy are these different modules going to produce? How much do they cost to install? And so what the Anza platform does is you can put information about your project in, and it will instantly, well, not instantly, it's about 20 seconds. It will, for every module in the database, calculate expected lifetime energy production and differences in expected install costs, discount that into current dollars, and let you see apples to apples, every module in the market, differences in total lifetime value. So that's what it does. We do think it is a transformative experience. It's really taken the supply chain and procurement into the modern age and showing what you can do with data technology.
Yeah, I have got an early demo, and I've been a big believer in what you guys are doing. And to even further your analogy of Kayak, I feel like it's Kayak plus CNET, if that's a good thing. The filtering and all that is great, but the calculations that you do and like your effective dollars per watt and simplifying and adding that engineering value, I feel like is huge. Like, it makes me feel like I could start my own development company, and I'm like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like it's that powerful, and you have energy storage on the platform now too. Right. And so anyone who walks in, if they're an engineer or not, they can use it however they want.
All right, now we'll wrap the show with Joe Ordia of Solar Surge and Ben Zientara from Solar Reviews as they discuss the current technology and market trends for the solar industry, from industry failures to companies moving towards made in the USA. These two know a fair amount about not just what's trending, but how to compare one technology against another. Hope you enjoy.
Unfortunately, some of the biggest news for our industry this year was the solar business failures. So I guess let's jump into that first.
Yeah, for sure.
Number of high-profile business failures, whether you're talking about Titan Solar, Pink Energy Power Home, or ADT acquiring SunPro just to shut the business down in 2 years. So what's your take on the state of the residential solar installer business and some of these high-profile failures that we've seen in 2023, 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as of a couple of years ago, we've seen a definite decrease in demand. Not demand for solar, but what residential customers will expect. And so we've seen a decrease in demand because of that. And that means that if a company isn't executing as well as it possibly can, then they're going to fail. We've definitely seen, ADT was very aggressive in moving into markets like Oklahoma and Kansas and these places that aren't traditionally known as bastions of good residential solar policy. So you end up, trying to fill in what you can at the margins. And if you can't sell at the right price and homeowners don't do well, then, the word spreads and you don't end up selling much at all. But I think, demand is there and it's actually returning now. We're at the end of 2024 or near the end, and interest rates should be going down soon. Jerome Powell seems to think that interest rates are going to go down very soon. I just saw a report that we're at the lowest level of inflation since 2021, so it's good to hear. And I think what we're seeing is that residential demand is picking back up, and installers are getting ready to sell into the market again.
Yeah. And maybe part of it is that we had things so good for so long. I mean, I know when I got into the industry in 2012, we knew nothing but year-over-year growth for the entire decade following that. And it was significant growth. I think 50% at least year-over-year for the entire decade. Then we get hit with higher interest rates. On top of that, higher financing fees. And that's something we can dig more into as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's definitely gotten more expensive to finance solar. And then for the first time in over a decade, we saw sales slowing down. And it seems like a lot of the companies that weren't ready for that ended up falling by the wayside.
Yeah, I think what we saw is that companies just grew so quickly and spread themselves out so much that when operational things weren't in place, they couldn't handle the downturns.
Yep. So do you think we've seen the worst of it now?
I certainly hope so. I think we probably have. From what we know from our clients is that they're getting, like I said, they're getting ready to turn back on campaigns and getting ready to get out there again. I think we haven't seen the end of closures. I think you mentioned today to me that we've just seen more recent closures of big solar companies. big solar residential companies. But I certainly think, like I said, the demand is there. Electricity isn't getting any cheaper from the grid. So there's always reason to get away from that as much as possible as a homeowner.
Sure. One of the things we do at Solar Surge, we travel around, we meet with solar contractors around the country, particularly here in California, because we want to share with the audience what are the companies that are finding success in today's environment, what are they doing differently than even some of these larger companies that we thought we were having a lot of success, and then they end up going out of business. One of the things I've noticed is that some of the smaller regional companies, they're not necessarily in every single market, and they're not trying to be everything to everybody, but they focus on one or two geographies. They do really good work, have a really good reputation there, and not trying to grow too fast. Yeah. That's what I've seen. Have you seen anything similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we've seen especially is that vertically integrated residential companies do really well. Those who employ their own salespeople, they employ their own service teams. They're able to maintain that relationship with their customers over the long run, and not just their customers, but the relationship with the AHJs in their local communities and the inspectors, and they kind of know exactly what to expect, and they can smooth things out or make sure things run streamlined. I think for too long, the people in the residential industry have kind of given out this message that solar is a zero maintenance product, and once you put it on your roof, it's going to work forever, and that's obviously not true. That there will be something that fails, and most likely it's going to be an inverter problem or something that's going to happen down the line. And you want to make sure that the company that installed it or the salesperson that sold it to you is responsible for helping you out when that happens.
One of the other trends that we're seeing here this week is this move towards made in USA and domestic content.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to that? Why do you think made in USA is so important right now? I haven't really remembered hearing this much in the past, is this real focus on U.S. manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Solar Reviews, we produce a yearly top 10 list of solar module manufacturing brands, solar battery brands, and one of our ranking criteria for those brands is whether they've committed to manufacturing in the U.S. Obviously, with the IRA a couple years ago, that became much more important. But I think we're actually kind of in a tenuous position with that because we've seen module manufacturers are saying, we're going to do the best we can to employ people and refine our processes and create a competitive product here for the market. But it's even with tariffs that exist right now, it's still hard to make money as a domestic module manufacturer. So the idea is you either size up, scale up, get your DOE grant or your LPO loan guarantee, and then make sure you execute extremely well on that front. But I guess the future will tell, whether we see new tariffs or an extension of the existing tariffs to protect manufacturers who've committed to the market, and I'm hoping we do.
All right, thank you for tuning in to this compilation episode of what is trending in the solar energy from the mouths of the folks that were combing the show floor at RE Plus 2024. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to meet any of these folks, or if you have contention with some of the technologies that they chose and think they should have chosen yours, feel free to reach out to us, podcast@suncast.me. Always open ears to what you think. And I'm grateful that you think SunCast is worth your time and attention. We have sponsors, of course, who help make sure that the show is viable each and every week. And we only ask you to pay attention. So I'm grateful that you are doing that now. Leave us your thoughts and opinions. You can also leave us your rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SunCast. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.